When you give everything to people who claim to be family, you never expect the words, "You're not welcome anymore." Yet there I was, staring at the cold glow of that text message, hands trembling as years of loyalty crumbled in an instant. It wasn't just a message, it was a verdict, delivered by my own daughter-in-law, the woman I had once welcomed like my own child. I remember the day she first entered our lives. Graceful, polite, with eyes full of dreams. My son, Ethan, looked at her like she was the center of his universe. And I, foolishly proud, believed that love would bind us all together. I gave them my home, my trust, and most of my savings when they decided to temporarily move in until they could afford their own place. That temporary stay stretched into years. At first, it was fine. I enjoyed having the house full again after my husband passed away. The laughter, the dinners, the noise, it filled the silence I'd grown used to. But slowly, things began to shift. My kitchen became her kitchen. My rules became inconvenient suggestions. My memories, replaced by her designer furniture and scented candles that gave me headaches. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself it was just a new generation's way of living. But deep down, a storm was brewing. I began to feel like a guest in the home I'd built brick by brick with my husband's hands. Then came that night when the insult that changed everything was born. It was Ethan's birthday, and I had cooked his favorite meal, roast chicken with garlic potatoes. The aroma filled the air, nostalgic and warm. But as soon as the plates hit the table, she wrinkled her nose. "Oh, this again?" She laughed softly, looking at Ethan. "Babe, we really need to stop eating these old-fashioned meals. It's so basic." The laughter that followed stabbed deeper than she could imagine. My son chuckled too, though awkwardly. That was the night I realized. Respect had quietly packed its bags and left this house long ago. Over the following months, small cruelties piled up. My favorite chair accidentally moved to the garage. My photo with my late husband replaced with some art print she said fit the aesthetic. I had become invisible, a relic she tolerated for the sake of convenience. Then came that text. It was early Sunday morning. I had gone to visit my sister for 2 days. When I returned, I saw the message, "You're not welcome anymore," followed by another. "We've decided it's time for you to find your own space. Please don't make this harder for us." My breath caught in my throat. My own son hadn't even messaged me himself. It was her. She had taken full control. But here's what she didn't know. The house she was so confidently living in wasn't Ethan's. It wasn't hers. It was mine, fully paid off and under my name alone. Every wall, every tile, every inch of that place was a chapter of my life. I didn't reply right away. I waited. I wanted the silence to confuse her, to make her believe she'd won. I spent that night in my car outside the house, watching the lights flicker through the windows. Inside, I could hear their laughter, probably celebrating my exile. But revenge, I've learned, is best cooked slowly. The next morning, I drove straight to my lawyer. Mr. Stevens had known our family for decades, ever since he helped us buy that very house. His eyebrows rose when I told him what happened. "So," he said, leaning back, "you still hold the title deed?" "Every last inch," I replied. He smiled. "Then, Margaret, you hold the keys to their entire life." That line echoed in my mind for days. I hold the keys. I decided I wouldn't scream or fight. I wouldn't beg my son to see sense. No, I would let reality deliver the lesson for me. While they continued living like nothing had changed, I quietly began the process of transferring the property, not to them, but to a private buyer I'd already found through Mr. Stevens. I had no intention of staying in a place poisoned with disrespect, but I wanted to make sure that when I walked away, they would feel the ground crumble beneath their feet. The papers took 2 weeks. During that time, I acted as if nothing was wrong. I even brought them groceries one afternoon, smiling politely while she scrolled on her phone, ignoring me. She didn't realize those were the final days she'd be sitting at my table. When the final signature was done, Mr. Stevens handed me the folder and said, "It's official. They have 30 days before the new owner takes possession." I thanked him, and walked out, heart pounding, not with guilt, but with freedom. That evening, I texted Ethan, "I'll be moving out soon. Hope you both find a new place that fits your taste." No anger, no confrontation, just calm certainty. But of course, it didn't stay calm for long. 2 days later, she showed up at my sister's door, face flushed, voice trembling. "What have you done?" she snapped. "The house is being sold. Do you have any idea what you're doing to us?" I looked at her for a long moment before replying, "I'm giving you what you wanted. You said I wasn't welcome, so I'm leaving, and taking my house with me." Her face drained of color. She sputtered, trying to argue that I couldn't legally do it, that it wasn't fair, that they'd spent money decorating. But fairness left when they decided a text message could erase a mother. "You built a home out of my generosity," I told her softly. "Now build one out of your own effort." When Ethan heard, he called me in a fury. "Mom, you can't just sell our house." "Our house?" I replied quietly. "Read the deed, Ethan. It's mine." Silence followed. Then a whisper. "You wouldn't actually." "I already did." That was the day I learned something about strength. It's quiet, patient, and terrifying when it finally awakens. The text message sat there on my screen like a slap I never saw coming. "You're not welcome anymore." Short, cold, final. I read it 3 times, each word sinking deeper into my chest until it felt like something inside me cracked. I wasn't expecting a warm invitation, not after everything that had been said at that dinner, but to be cut off completely, to be dismissed by someone I'd welcomed like family, that hurt in a way I didn't think I could still feel. See, I wasn't just anyone to her. I was the one who had kept the lights on when her husband, my own son, lost his job. The one who helped them move into that big suburban house they now called theirs. I'd written the check for the down payment, and I'd told myself, "It's family. You help family." But maybe that was my mistake, assuming that family still meant loyalty. Her name was Amanda. My son met her at a marketing firm where she worked as an assistant, though if you heard her talk, you'd think she owned the company. From day one, she made it clear she didn't want the mother-in-law shadow in her life. I brushed it off as youthful arrogance, something time and experience would humble. But time only made her bolder. At first, it was small things, comments disguised as jokes at family dinners, about how I hovered too much, or how old people don't understand boundaries. Everyone laughed, including my son, and I'd force a smile even when my heart stung. But eventually, those jabs turned into daggers. Then came that one dinner, the one that changed everything. It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday meal. I'd spent the afternoon cooking, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, a recipe my late husband used to love. When they arrived, Amanda wrinkled her nose before even tasting it. "You still make food like it's 1,980, she said, laughing, as if it were some harmless remark. I remember setting the serving spoon down slowly. I remember how the sound of metal on porcelain felt louder than the laughter. My son tried to smooth things over. "She's just joking, Mom." But there was no joke in her eyes. Just that smug satisfaction of knowing she'd made me small in my own home. I didn't react that night, but something in me started to change. Because here's the truth. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes, silence is planning. So when that text came, "You're not welcome anymore," I didn't respond. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask why. I just let the phone rest on the counter, exhaled deeply, and for the first time in years, I felt calm. Because they didn't know something I'd kept quiet about, something they'd never thought to ask. That house, their house, wasn't really theirs. The mortgage, the deed, the legal name on the papers, all mine. I'd helped them buy it, yes, but I'd kept ownership just in case. My lawyer had even warned me about it. "Families fall apart over money faster than you'd believe," he'd said. I'd laughed then. I wasn't laughing now. Amanda thought she'd cut me out, but she had no idea how deep my roots went. That night, I pulled out a dusty folder from my filing cabinet, the original purchase documents, the payment records, the legal agreements I'd signed 5 years ago. My name, printed clearly across the top of every page. I remembered every conversation leading up to that purchase. Amanda insisting she wanted a big backyard, my son worrying about the monthly costs, me stepping in to help just until you both get settled. They'd agreed, and I'd handled the paperwork myself. Now, as I stared at those papers, I realized something chilling. Every boundary they'd crossed, every insult I'd swallowed, every humiliation I'd endured, I had the power to end it. But I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted something better, understanding. I wanted my son to see what she was turning him into. So I called him. He didn't answer the first time, or the second. When he finally did, his voice was sharp. "Mom, I can't talk right now. Amanda doesn't think it's healthy for us to have these constant conflicts." "Conflicts?" I said quietly. "All I've done is love you." There was silence, then a sigh. "It's just, you make her uncomfortable. Maybe give us some space." Space. That word again. The polite way of saying you don't belong. "Of course," I said. "Take all the space you need." I hung up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city lights. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I think it's time," I told him. He knew exactly what I meant. See, people think revenge is about shouting or breaking things. It's not. Real revenge is quiet. It's paperwork and timing. It's watching someone dig their own hole and then gently handing them the shovel. By the end of that week, the process had begun. My lawyer sent notice to the mortgage company, a simple letter indicating ownership transfer and property reassessment. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just business. Meanwhile, Amanda went on with her perfect little life, posting family photos online, writing captions about our dream home, and building our future. I'd scroll through them at night, not with bitterness, but with the kind of calm that only comes from knowing how the story really ends. She thought she'd written me out of her life, but she didn't realize I held the keys to the very house she was standing in. And soon, she'd find out. The letter was sent on a Tuesday morning, just another white envelope dropped into the mailbox outside their house. Ordinary to anyone else, but heavy with meaning. Inside was a formal notice. Property reassessment due to ownership change review. Legal, official, calm. But if you knew how to read between the lines, it was the first crack in their perfect life. I didn't plan on telling them immediately. No grand reveal, no confrontation. I wanted them to feel it slowly. The shift, the confusion, the quiet dread of realizing something's wrong and not knowing what. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my son. His voice sounded strained. "Mom, did you do something to the house?" I kept my tone steady. "Why do you ask?" "Well, Amanda got a letter from the county office. Something about ownership documents being reviewed. She's panicking." I could almost picture it. Her pacing across that shiny kitchen floor I helped pay for. Her voice rising in that sharp tone she used when things slipped out of her control. "I see," I said. "Maybe you should check the deed. You might find something interesting there." He was quiet for a moment. "Mom, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," I replied, "that not everything you think is yours actually is." Silence. Just his breathing on the other end of the line. Then, quietly, "You're doing this to get back at Amanda." I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "No, son. I'm doing this to remind you where you came from." He started to protest, his voice trembling with frustration and guilt. But I didn't want an argument. "I love you," I said softly, and ended the call. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully that night. The next week was a storm, not outside, but inside their home. My son called again and again. Amanda even left a few voicemails, each one angrier than the last. "You can't do this. We've lived here for years. You gave this house to us." But the thing is, I hadn't. Not legally. My lawyer confirmed the process was moving smoothly. "Once the paperwork is finalized, you'll have full authority to make any decision you see fit," he said, "including eviction, if it comes to that." Eviction. Such a harsh word. And yet, part of me knew it was coming. I didn't want to kick them out. I wanted them to see what entitlement costs. to understand that kindness isn't infinite, and that you don't humiliate someone who once kept a roof over your head. But Amanda wasn't the type to reflect. She was the type to fight. That Saturday, she showed up at my door. No warning, just the sharp knock of someone used to getting their way. When I opened the door, she stood there in a designer jacket, eyes blazing. "You think you can scare us with paperwork?" she spat. "You're pathetic." I didn't flinch. "Would you like to come in?" She hesitated, clearly not expecting calmness. She wanted a shouting match. I wasn't giving her one. Inside, she looked around the modest living room, the same one she'd once called cramped. Now, she looked like she couldn't wait to leave. "I don't know what game you're playing," she began, "but you're not taking our home." "Our home," I repeated softly. Interesting choice of words. Her jaw tightened. "We've paid the bills, kept it running." "With my money," I interrupted. "Every loan I gave, every check I wrote, all documented. You thought kindness meant surrender." She scoffed. "You think anyone's going to believe you didn't give it to us? You're just bitter. You can't stand that your son finally has his own life without you controlling it." There it was. The truth she'd been holding in all along. I smiled faintly. "If that's what you believe, Amanda, then I wish you peace. But facts are stubborn things." I handed her a folder, copies of the property papers, with my signature and the official seal. Her eyes scanned the pages, the color draining from her face. This can't be right." "Oh, it's right," I said gently. "And the review you got from the county? That's just the beginning." She tried to keep her voice steady. "You wouldn't dare throw us out, not your own son." "I wouldn't have to," I said. "I'll give him the choice. You or the house." For a long moment, she just stood there, angry, embarrassed, defeated. Then she slammed the folder shut and stormed out without another word. I watched her go, feeling not victorious, but strangely free. Because what she didn't understand was that this wasn't revenge anymore. It was release. That night, my son came over. Alone. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. "Mom," he said quietly, "you really did it. You went through with it." I nodded. "Yes." He sat down heavily. "She's furious. She says she won't live there if you're still lurking over us. She wants to sell it and move somewhere else." I met his gaze. "Then sell it." He blinked. "You'd let her?" "No," I said. "Because she can't. Only I can." He rubbed his face, torn between love and loyalty. "Why are you doing this, Mom?" I leaned forward. "Because I raised you to be kind, not blind. I've watched that woman turn you against your own blood. She mocks me. She mocks this family, and you let it happen." He swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to." "I know," I said softly. "That's why I'm giving you a choice. Not to hurt you, but to wake you up." He looked down, voice breaking. "What happens if I choose her?" "Then you live with her," I said quietly. "Somewhere else." The silence stretched between us like a river. Neither of us knew how to cross. Finally, he stood up. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," I said. After he left, I sat there in the stillness, the clock ticking in the background. I didn't know what he would choose. I only knew one thing. I was done being small in my own story. For years, I'd carried everyone else's needs on my back. The bills, the sacrifices, the emotional bruises. But that text, that cruel, "You're not welcome anymore," had freed me more than it had hurt me. Because once someone shows you your place, you get to decide whether you'll stay there. And I was done staying small. The days that followed were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, just silence. The kind that hums with decisions being made behind closed doors. I went about my usual routine. Morning tea by the window, tending to my plants, chatting with the neighbor's little boy when he brought his soccer ball over. Life was simple again, stripped of the drama that had once filled every corner. But beneath that calm, something was shifting. On Thursday evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the walls gold, I heard the familiar sound of my son's car in the driveway. When I opened the door, he wasn't alone. Amanda stood beside him, her posture stiff, her expression unreadable. I took a slow breath. "Come in." They hesitated, exchanging a glance before stepping inside. My son's voice was careful, rehearsed almost. "Mom, we need to talk." I gestured to the couch. "Then talk." Amanda sat down, crossing her legs and folding her arms tightly. She looked around as if she were in a courtroom instead of a living room. My son cleared his throat. We talked things through. Amanda's sorry for the way she spoke to you. The word sorry sounded strange coming from him, like he didn't quite believe it himself. Amanda forced a small smile. "I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean. But this whole thing with the house, it's gone too far. You can't just take it away." I studied her face. The apology wasn't real. It was a strategy. "I'm not taking anything away," I said evenly. "I'm just keeping what's mine." She leaned forward. "But it's our home now. We've built our life there. You can't just undo that." "I can," I replied, "and I will, if you keep pretending ownership means entitlement." My son reached for her hand. "Mom, please, let's just calm down. Maybe we can come to an agreement?" He tilted my head. "An agreement?" He nodded. "Maybe you could transfer the house officially to us. I'll make monthly payments to you. It's fair." I looked at him, my heart aching. "You really think this is about money?" Amanda's voice sharpened. "Then what is it about?" "It's about respect," I said softly. "Something I lost the moment you texted me those words. You're not welcome anymore." The air grew heavy. My son shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, that was wrong, but—" "No, but—" I interrupted. "You let her treat me like I was disposable, like I didn't matter. And now you want me to forget it because it's convenient?" Amanda stood up, frustration spilling over. "You're being unreasonable. You're ruining our marriage over pride." I rose too, calm but firm. If a marriage can be ruined by truth, it was never strong to begin with. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. Then I added, "The papers are already being processed. The property will revert fully to me within the week. After that, you'll have 30 days to find another place." My son looked at me in disbelief. "Mom, you can't." "I can," I said again. "And I have." Amanda's eyes flashed. "You'll regret this. When you're old and alone, don't come running to us." I smiled faintly. "That's the beauty of peace, Amanda. You don't need an audience for it." She turned to my son, exasperated. "Let's go. She's lost it." He hesitated, his gaze flickering between us. For a brief moment, I saw the boy I raised, torn, kind, trapped between love and manipulation. But then he followed her out, leaving the door swinging shut behind him. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that feels both painful and powerful. Over the next week, the process moved fast. I got emails from my lawyer confirming the transfer, the legal verifications, the final documents. On the 12th day, I received the confirmation. I was now the sole legal owner. I sat down at the kitchen table with the papers spread out before me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe fully. No guilt, no resentment, just release. And then, unexpectedly, a small ache crept in. Because even when you win, part of you mourns the love that didn't survive the battle. That night, I received a text from my son. "Mom, we're moving out. Amanda says it's for the best. I didn't want it to end like this." I stared at the screen, my heart heavy but steady. "It didn't have to," I typed back. "You just had to remember where home really was." He didn't reply. Days passed. The moving truck came and went. I saw them only once, briefly, through the window, Amanda barking instructions, while my son quietly loaded boxes. When the truck finally pulled away, I stepped outside. The evening air was cool, and the neighborhood was still. There it was, their house, my house now, standing silent and empty. I walked through it the next morning. The rooms echoed with the ghosts of laughter and arguments, of holidays and family dinners long gone. In the kitchen, I found something, a framed photo left behind on the counter. It was of the three of us, smiling at last year's Christmas dinner. I looked younger then, happier maybe, hopeful. I set it back down gently. By noon, I had the locks changed. Not out of anger, but out of finality. Later, when I walked out into the yard, the neighbor called over the fence. "You moving back in?" I smiled. "For now." He nodded approvingly. "Good. It's about time someone appreciated that house again." Appreciation. That's all I'd wanted from the start. The next few weeks passed quietly. I redecorated, planted new flowers in the garden, and slowly filled the space with warmth again. Then one morning, I got a call from a realtor I knew. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "I heard you're back in your old place. If you're thinking of selling, I already have interested buyers. The market's strong." I paused, looking out the window at the sunlight filtering through the trees. "Actually," I said, "I might consider it. The right buyer, though, someone who understands what this home is worth, not just in dollars." When I hung up, I realized something. This wasn't just about reclaiming a house. It was about reclaiming myself. For too long, I'd let other people define what I deserved: love, respect, belonging. But the truth is, when someone throws you out of their heart, you have two choices: stay at the door and beg, or walk away and build your own. I'd chosen the second, and now, standing in the sunlight of my own making, I didn't regret a single thing. A few months passed. The season shifted, painting the trees outside my window with gold and amber. The air carried the smell of wood smoke and change, a quiet reminder that time heals, even when it doesn't apologize. Life had fallen into rhythm again. My mornings began with the sound of birds, my afternoons with soft music and tea. The emptiness that once echoed through the house now felt like freedom. Every room, every corner belonged to peace. Then one morning, as I was trimming the rose bushes out front, a familiar voice called from the gate. "Mom?" I turned. There stood my son, alone this time, looking tired, older somehow. His shoulders sagged with the weight of regret. I wiped my hands on my apron and smiled softly. "It's been a while." He nodded. "Yeah, too long." There was an awkward silence, the kind that carries everything left unsaid. Then he finally spoke. "Amanda and we separated." I didn't react, just listened. She couldn't stand living in that rental. Said everything reminded her of what we lost. She blamed me, blamed you, blamed everyone but herself. He exhaled heavily. "And I realized something, Mom. You were never the problem." That simple line, "you were never the problem," broke something open inside me. He stepped closer. "I'm sorry for how I let things happen, for letting her treat you like that. I thought keeping peace with her was more important than standing up for you." I met his eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw the boy I'd raised, kind, sincere, flawed but learning. "I forgave you a long time ago," I said quietly. "I just needed you to see it yourself." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I do now, and I understand why you did what you did. You didn't lock us out, Mom. You made me realize what I'd locked myself away from: my family, my roots, my own values." For a long moment, we just stood there. The autumn wind rustled the leaves, and the sun broke through the clouds like a quiet blessing. Finally, I said, "Come in. It's chilly." He smiled faintly. "You sure I'm welcome?" I chuckled. "Always." As we sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd once shared countless dinners, he looked around with a wistful expression. "You fixed the place up. It looks beautiful." "I had the time," I replied, "and the peace." He laughed softly. "I missed this. I missed you." We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. The past, the mistakes, the little things that make up love when you strip away the pride. When he finally left that evening, I watched his car disappear down the road. There was no bitterness left, only quiet understanding. And then, something unexpected happened a few weeks later. A letter arrived. Not from him, from Amanda. It was short, almost bitter in tone. "You ruined my marriage and took away the only stability we had. I hope you're happy in your empty house." I read it twice, then smiled, because she still didn't get it. It wasn't the house that was empty. It was the heart she built her life around, one that couldn't hold gratitude. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer, right beside the old Christmas photo they'd left behind. A reminder not of pain, but of how far I'd come. A week later, the realtor called again. "The same buyer is still interested," she said. "They're offering above market value." I thought about it for a while. Selling the house felt symbolic, like closing a book that had been read one too many times. "All right," I said finally. "Let's do it." The paperwork moved fast, and on the day I signed the final document, I stood in the empty living room one last time. The walls were bare, but they held echoes, laughter, anger, lessons, and finally peace. Before leaving, I whispered into the quiet, "Thank you for teaching me to choose myself." Then I turned off the lights and walked out. A few weeks later, I bought a small cottage by the lake. Nothing grand, just perfect. A place where mornings began with the sound of rippling water and nights ended with the hum of crickets. It wasn't loneliness that filled the air. It was freedom. Sometimes I'd sit by the water and think about how life comes full circle, how the people who try to push you down often end up becoming the reason you rise higher. My son visited often. He brought groceries, fixed the fence, sometimes just sat with me on the porch without saying a word. That silence, after everything, was the most comforting sound in the world. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the lake, he asked, "Do you ever miss the old house?" I thought for a moment. "Not the house," I said, "just the version of us that lived there before respect got lost." He nodded, understanding completely. I looked at him and smiled. "But maybe we're building something better now, one that doesn't need walls." He smiled back. "Yeah, Mom, I think we are." As the sky turned shades of pink and gold, I realized something profound. Sometimes, life's cruelest moments are disguised as invitations to freedom. That text, "You're not welcome anymore," once felt like a dagger, but now it felt like a door. The kind that closes only so another can open, wider, brighter, truer. And maybe that's the quiet power of reclaiming your worth. Not shouting, not fighting, but simply choosing peace over permission. Because when people try to erase you, the best revenge isn't anger. It's living well enough that they fade into the footnotes of your happiness. And as I sat there that night, watching the last light dance across the water, I knew one thing for certain. I didn't need their house, their approval, or their apologies. I had everything I'd ever wanted: my peace, my dignity, and my keys to my own life.